So it's 12 o'clock UK time, and welcome to this FutureLearn webinar. I'm Robert Jones, and with me on the webinar to answer your questions, I have my University of East Anglia colleague, Dr. Nick Yip. Hello, Nick.
Oh.
And we have 4 students who are currently doing the Brand Leadership Masters course at the University of East Anglia. Carrie, Dario, Leona and Penny are all on the call and ready to answer questions. If you have a question, then please put it into the chat function. We have a question already that's FutureLearner put onto the FutureLearn platform, so we'll answer that. But if you have more questions, do please put them on the chat. And we are recording this session. I know a lot of people who can't join us live now will be watching the recording, so welcome to all of you. Let's just maybe quickly do some intros. Nick, tell us a little bit about your particular interest in or angle on branding.
Hi everyone. So my name is Nick Yip. I am an associate professor in marketing at the University of East Anglia. So my research area really is in services and value co-creation and the concept of co-branding. If you are talking about brands in the research area, so it's all about consumers and how, in my world, the brand belongs to the consumer rather than the firm.
Yeah, the brand belongs to the consumer. It's a really powerful thought, that. Carrie, hi, good morning. You're one of the current brand leadership students. Tell us a bit about your background, please. It's Carrie, she's on her phone, I can see.
Hello, sorry.
Hi.
Hello, can you see that?
Yes, we can.
I just come back from the city center, so a little bit weird here. Hi, I'm Carrie. I'm from Taiwan, and I'm this year brand leadership student. And I've worked for branding and marketing for over 10 years, and now I decided to restart it and get some new knowledge and systemly knowledge from Robert, because I think this module is very worth it for a year. Yeah.
Carrie, welcome. Dario, tell us a bit about your background.
Yes, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Dario. I'm from Italy. Studied business administration in Germany and then in the UK. And I've a background in customer experience and in energy sector. And probably, yes, to the question that Robert shared with us with how to categorize branding to a lot of other subjects. This is especially a good thing of this course, which is combining all of them. And yeah.
Right, we'll come on to that question in a moment. Thanks, Dario. Leona, tell us a bit about you, please.
Hi, so I'm Leona. I'm from Hong Kong. I have a degree in graphic design from the other university here in Norwich University Arts. And so now I am here studying the more strategic side of brand leadership with Robert.
Great. And Penny, hello. Tell us about your background, Penny, please.
Yeah, hi, I'm Penny, and I'm from China. I study international economics and trade in China, and now I currently a brand leader in this year. I hope to learn more knowledge about branding, and I hope to in the future solve some branding problems. And so yeah, that's it.
Great, okay. Thanks very much, Penny. So let's start. We've got just under half an hour. So we have a question that was sent in by Kat Look, who I think is actually trying to join us, but perhaps having some connection problems. But I hope you can join us, Kat, or at least you'll hear this on the recording. But your question is it possible to categorize knowledge of branding into four things: science, art, technique, and method. It's a really interesting question. Science, art, technique, and method. And I think, Dario, you said that branding has lots of different angles to it and different ways of thinking. What's your response to that question?
Yeah, I think it's those four categories, for subjects and even more that combined create branding. Because in my opinion, branding goes behind. We argue that it's not more than logo, and it really is. And so I think actually for branding to be successful and be good, those need to be the pillars and need to be there and need to be strong. And what's in between is magic, as we say.
Okay, so what's in the middle of those four things is magic. Okay. Leona, what's your feeling? Because you're sort of an artist becoming a scientist in a way. You've done an arts degree and now you're doing a Master of Science postgraduate degree. What's your feeling?
I think I agree with what Dario said. I think it is a combination of all of them. I mean, before I started like studying more about like brand strategy and stuff, I always did think that it was more of like the art side of it, like design. And like once I started looking into it and actually getting interested in like, I suppose it's the behind the scenes of like all of the design. I do think it is like a combination of all four and more.
And for all four and more as well. Yeah, okay. Penny, what's your feeling? Is there one of those four that's the most important? Science, art, method, technique?
Yeah, I think. I think. I don't know how to say it. They all make sense. Yeah. Sorry.
It all makes sense. I agree. I'm just wondering whether there's any kind of priority to them. Nick, you're a scientist, really, aren't you?
So yeah, you stand corrected. I'm a social scientist. The real scientists will argue. Yeah. So with the social sciences, measurements are usually a bit difficult. Yeah, but this whole concept of the arts versus the science it's about data and it's about understanding what the facts are telling you. Yeah. So while in industry, Robert, in your case instance, I mean your data will tell you what it is. But I think in practice, sometimes it is the art, And I remember doing a piece of research on pricing once, and someone called pricing that it's almost like black magic. You don't know what you're going to get until you test it. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. But I think in branding, it's all about testing until it changes. And so that's why you have firms that will test and retest. You kind of rebrand. And more importantly, I think what you need to understand really is that markets change and consumers change with time, and so it's that change that you need to identify. Yeah.
I think that's right. And sometimes the intuition of art can recognise change before the analysis of data. Although artificial intelligence might just change all of that, of course. We can become faster at spotting trends than human intuition is. Carrie, your experience of branding, what's your sense of it? In your experience, is it mostly science, mostly art, mostly method, mostly technique?
I think branding to me is more like a communication between art and other kind of field, because like art is the core value, is like telling the concept and trying to transferring your ideas to others. And I think branding is a really good bridge, like connected with businesses and connected with technology and give meanings to like different kind of fields that you want to transfer into human minds. So I think that's the way branding to me. So arts or like graphic design is a way that you can really easily touch people's subconscious and these kind of things. So we always use art to like help us to reach our goals. And so I think like branding is indeed is a process, is a processing things. And yeah, it's to me the meaning is like that.
Yeah, and I think I would agree. I think what has happened in my experience of working in branding is that science has come more to the fore, and that clients are more and more interested in having data to support any kind of intuitive judgment about what's the right answer. And I remember working for one of the very, very big tech companies a couple of years ago on actually on a new logo, recognizing that logo is only one bit of branding. But anyway, this was about a new logo. And what this tech company wanted, because it lives in the world of data, was for us to create 100 different variations of this logo design that it could somehow test, so that the task of human judgment about which is the best logo could be converted into data analysis. And that struck me as, at the time, really weird. But I think it might be where things are going, and that more and more, as we become better and better at using and understanding data, more and more companies will rely more on data and less on human intuition. And who knows, that might give a better answer. But excuse me, a really good question. And thank you very much for asking it. Sorry, I've got a frog in my throat. Let's go on to another question. And by the way, do add any questions that you've got into the chat, please, on Blackboard. You can get the chat by clicking on the pink symbol at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. That will show you a speech bubble, and that's where
Robert, I just wanted to ask you, I can see that Dion on the thing is trying to connect. Yeah, if you have her email, just ask her to go on to what do you call it, Chrome, because I think they that when they don't have a connection, it could be that they're joining with on a different platform, a different browser.
Right. Okay.
Only we have the time because we only have half an hour. But
yeah. Paul, I think we don't really have a quick way of getting in touch with the future learners, unfortunately. But next time we'll remember to suggest that Chrome is the best way in. Thanks, Nick. That's really helpful reminder. Let's go on to another question. Something that people talk about a lot in branding is co-creation, the idea that brands are co-created by companies and their customers. Is that on the rise, Nick? And if I can start with you, and what would be some examples of that?
Yeah, so when I say, so in my world, it's on the rise simply because that's my main research area. But you do see more and more firms, trying to push the use of resources in terms of creating services, or creating products, if you like, because in my world there's no such thing as a product, everything is a service. So you do see more and more of consumers using their own resources to create transactions. So if you look at, say, banking and finance, in a way, let's say if you take, let's say NatWest or Barclays or HSBC, they will offer a value proposition. But how much of it depends on the consumer, really. In this instance, is that you would have to use more of your resources, and in that sense, because you are using your own resources to create that service, most of it will be co-created in that respect. Yeah. So hopefully that makes sense to some of you at least.
Okay, so just because things are services, the users of those services take part in the creation of value. And therefore there's an element of co-creation in Dario, what do you think? Is co-creation something that's on the rise? Is it more and more true that consumers are partial owners and creators of brands, do you think?
Yes. I think things like customization and you know, participation in the brand in brands is increasing. Like yeah, consumers have play a big role in creating brands. However, I think we also as humans, I think we also kind of have a need of something that's known, that's familiar to us. So I think it will I'm not sure. It will depend. Like not really sure if something like individual for everybody will be the future of, or if it will still depend on, you know, clusters or something that's similar for everybody.
I guess it may be that for some very kind of ordinary everyday products, consumers are not going to be putting the time into co-creating, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it is one also like one of the, I think one of the aspects of brand products, for example, that you just pick it because you know it already, so you don't really invest time into judgments for your purchase. So yeah, you know, I think many people will still rely on the brand that they trust, and so be fine with that, not really getting into the creation of it.
Yeah. Leona, we talked in class last week about 4 currently very successful brands: TikTok, Patagonia, Gymshark, and Oatly. And I think one of the things we concluded is that there's quite a high element of consumer participation in brand building in all of those cases. Am I right about that?
Yeah, I think especially in the case for like TikTok and Gymshark, they definitely do require more kind of like social media marketing to like reach their customer bases. And because of that, it's very reliant on the customer. So we just said that like the brand value was definitely co-created between the organization and the customer, just because if they think that there's value in the brand, and they will automatically share it with the world on social media.
Yeah, and I think that's right. And Harry, you worked on the branding of a place, a venue, a destination in Taiwan. Did you find that consumer participation was important in building that brand?
I'm not sure, because there are 2 kind of different like ways that people want to do. Of course, people want to like have some engagement with their like potential like customers, indeed. But sometimes, like if customers involve too much, your brand like direction may be like too complicated, because like every people wants different kind of things. Every people have their own opinions, and that's why I think like how brand leaders, we need to like focus on what we really want to do, and try to make them engage in the way you want them to do. Is the most important things, I believe.
Yeah, so you can't simply be driven by consumers, or there's no integrity left in the brand. It becomes too
too broad.
Yeah, too broad. It's a really good observation. That I think it's a good question, and I'm doing some work with a client at the moment in the world of culture, and you can imagine organisations in the world of the arts and museums and so on don't have a great deal of money. So to build a brand, there is no possibility of a huge TV advertising campaign. It's got to be done by social media. It's got to be done by the users, by the customers. And we're talking about maybe what this new brand needs is not so much a logo as a language. Lucy is one of the future learners on the call. Welcome. You have, I think you have your hand raised, maybe not. No, it was, I think, that. Do you have a question, Lucy? No, don't worry, no problem. So if you do have a question to ask, then please do type it into the chat function. We've got 10 minutes to go, and we'll try to answer a couple more questions. Can I ask one that's been sent in too, which is a really simple question, but not an easy one, which is, can you measure brands? Can you measure, Nick, you talked about measurement before, can you measure the success of
Well, yeah, I mean, so in my classrooms, I think we've talked about brands and brand value. So when we talk about value first, the word value, it's not necessarily quantifiable, because from a service dominant logic perspective, that value very much depends on the user. So when you talk about calculating brand value, the only way that you can look at it is on a balance sheet as an intangible aspect. That's the only way that you can quantify it. If you want to quantify it any other way else through a social science, it's again up to the individual user. So you've got to be very mindful about how you quantify brand value, so to speak. And if you want to go down that line, it could be brand worth, as in like the numerical number, versus what it means to the user, because each consumer holds brand in a different way. And to measure that will be difficult, but not impossible. Yeah, so it will be complicated, but not impossible.
I suppose, strictly speaking, the only time when it's really possible accurately to measure the value of a brand is when a company sells a brand to somebody else, because that price that company is prepared to pay is the value of the brand at that point.
Exactly. But then you see that involves a lot of accounting practices like due diligence and stuff like that. And so again, things like discounts and how much and what a future worth. So like, for example, if you want to buy Coke today, or you want to buy say Nike or Amazon, what is it worth? People would say, oh, is it worth the billions? So to some people, a billions will be even, you will get it at a steal, because the future earnings of these four techs. So there's a new research coming through. I think they call it GAFA, the Googles, the Amazons, the Facebooks, and the Apple. Yeah, where four companies controls 90% of the internet. What does that mean? What does that mean? So these are lots of very interesting conversations when it comes to brands, and how do we compete?
We talked in class actually last week about a different way of coming at this through a thing called the Net Promoter Score, which isn't trying to measure the monetary value, but to measure how much customers would how likely they are to recommend your product or service. Penny, did you feel that was a good way of measuring brand?
I think I will say like 70% that's a good way, because when I asked my friends whether they will recommend Apple to their friends, they said they may not be loyalty to this brand, but they think this is a good way. This is a good system, or some kind of things they think this brand is good, and so they will recommend it to their friends because there's no better choice. But that not means they show their brand loyalty to this brand. So I will say maybe just 70% agree with that.
Okay, so it's a 70% good way of measuring brands. Okay, so Net Promoter Score for future learners, do look that up, because it's incredibly widely used at the moment. It does have the benefit of simplicity, a very simple measure of people's attitudes to a brand. Let's just see if we can answer a couple more questions. And future learners, if you want to ask a question, do please click on the pink symbol at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, and then you get to the chat function. And David is asking, how can we adapt the branding process to build a personal brand when it isn't tied to a product or corporation? So personal brands, interesting question. Carrie, what's your feeling? Is personal branding the same thing as corporate branding, or very different?
That's interesting, because most of the branding projects I go with is like mostly personal branding, and I think the most important idea of all the branding is the same. It's like you need to know what you're inside to do, and then you need to clear what you really want to transfer into the public. I think these ideas are the same, but for like personal brand, we got different tools to like express ourselves. Most of it we use social medias, of course, because we need to use different like kind of tools like videos or like social medias to express ourselves. So I think to personal brands, your personality is the most important things of in the branding like field, and that's a little bit different in corporate brands because they might to consider other kind of things in the corporate brand. Yeah,
very interesting. So human beings actually do have a personality.
Yeah,
Companies, strictly speaking, don't. They're not living things in the same way, but branding kind of pretends that they do, doesn't it? And that is an important difference. Fiona, are you a believer in personal branding?
I think definitely, just because like you said, we all have a personality and everything, but the way that you brand yourself is kind of the same process as how you would brand a corporation, except that instead of having a whole team of people discussing what the values of the brand is, or like how we want to represent the brand, it's just, I guess, if you're branding yourself, then it's just your own views of your own values and everything. So it is quite similar in that sense.
But that does make it very difficult, doesn't it? It's very hard for us to see our own strengths and characteristics and to kind of decode our own brands for ourselves is a really hard thing to do. Have you ever tried doing that, Dario?
I think so. I mean, I think the interesting thing about personal branding is that even if you don't think about personal branding, you're actually doing it. So like even if you say I don't care about it, like this shows something about yourself, about your values, that you don't care about it. So it's
okay. So even if you do nothing, you still have a personal brand.
This is your brand. This is your brand of somebody who doesn't care, and yeah, so there's no excuse.
There's no excuse. It's like
can I add something to that? Because David wanted to know about the branding process. What is interesting for me when I look at the branding process really is how these influencers at the moment that is very much web-based, internet-based, so it's very much online-based, trying to move to mainstream offline. So when I say offline, it means that influencers, when they try to scale, get on the personal brand, the process does involve coming outside the web base, and they try to scale in such a way that they get to mainstream in terms of an offline presence. So not necessarily all the time as online. Yeah? And I think they need to do that because they need to scale their business or the size of their followers in that sense. Hopefully I'm making sense, David.
Yeah. I think I think that's right, and I think because human beings are not the same thing as corporations or products, personal branding is important, but has to be done really carefully and sensitively, and recognise that people are complicated things and that we change over time. That you can't necessarily sum up a person in a slogan in the same way that you can sum up a product in a slogan. Yeah. I think sometimes personal branding is done in a way that is too reductive and too simple.
There is a paper that I'm going to type for David before you all lock off, but yeah, continue. But just let me type that before you close it. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So David, some follow-up reading coming up for you. We're coming up to the end of our half hour. It's gone past incredibly quickly. But future learners, thank you very much for your questions. I hope you found it valuable, whether you were able to join us live or whether you're listening to or watching the recording. And then to my University of East Anglia colleagues and friends, Nick, Gary, Dario, Fiona and Penny, thank you very much for you. There's a link for you, David, to follow up on.
Yeah, so David, just copy and paste that on Google Scholar. You would be able to see that paper. Yeah. And Nicole has another question. So
So Nicole, you have a question. Okay, well, let's see if we can answer it in a minute. Some companies haven't changed their brand image for a long time. Is it strategy to keep the iconic image, or do they not want to change it? Very one sentence answer. What do you think, Carrie? Is it laziness or is it deliberate?
I think some kind of brand didn't like change a lot because the target audience for them is fixed, and they want to their target audience didn't feel the same with the price. I think most of the brand is about memorable like things like products you bought when you are a child. Then most of the brand won't change their brand because they want to keep the taste or keep the memory of what you like have when you are like long ago. So I think some kind of brand are doing that. And the other one, I think they are like, maybe they need rebranding, you know, that's what we want to do. So like, yeah, I got two different kind of ideas.
Yeah, okay. If the product and the customers are the same, then why change in a way? Yeah, what do you think? Are you a fan of rebranding?
I'm a fan of rebranding, but to answer the question, I feel like it's definitely the iconic brands that don't change their brand image. That's deliberate because they have that brand recognition in like so many people's minds. So that's my answer to that.
Yeah,
I think an example can be the Post, Royal Post. I guess it was they changed it. Royal Mail, was it? And then they changed it completely.
The Royal Mail in Britain.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, the Postal Service was going to change its name briefly to Consignia, which was such a silly name that everybody laughed at it, and they decided not to do it. So
I think rebranding is be very bold. It's a bold process and must be done like very carefully. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Penny, what do you think? Is it important to, if you're iconic, then you keep the icon the same?
I think it depends. I think if you wanna rebranding the brand image, so the first thing you would do is that you need to keep the core value of the brand image. So you're gonna do some like marketing research to find what kind of core value that means a lot to their customers, because it's like the logo can stay for a long time. That must means a lot to some consumers. So you need to find out which part of that means a lot and keep that and change another thing.
If you've got that icon, then it's wired into millions of consumers' minds. So you kind of mess with that. It's a risk, isn't it? Nick, would you rebrand or be cautious?
I think the straight answer to it, I think now with this whole COVID-19 and the world order changing, I think a lot of firms will. I mean, in the last 10 years, I mean, I've seen iconic brands like Coke, Nike. I mean, they keep changing, not necessarily the core, but they start changing their brands in such a way that it speaks to different audiences at different times. So I think that's very important, because trying to understand the Gen Zs and the Gen AAs, you know, it's going to be a huge thing, and for our younger generation. I mean, I think they need to know what these people stand for.
Well, there we are. That's a prediction to conclude with, that in these changing times, we may see a lot of icons changing as well in the next couple of years. But thank you very much, future learners, and our panel of experts. Thanks for joining, and we'll stop there. Thank you.